All right. So, hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Jay Helms. I am the founder of the W2 Capitalist. If you're not familiar with the W2 Capitalist, we are a resource for people who want to create multiple streams of income, achieve financial freedom, or build legacy wealth through real estate investing. We also talk about other forms of investing, stocks, crypto. Sometimes make it upon our oh, sorry, our platform, but mainly we're talking about real estate investing. And here comes another familiar face, Kat Murphy coming on. There are many ways to connect with us here at the W2 Capitalist community. And instead of boring you guys with that pitch, I'm going to post it in the chat because we've got about a 30 minutes of jam-packed session here with Eva Holland. We're going to talk about short-term rentals, getting started in short-term rentals. And one of the things that I want to make sure as I post this in the chat, this Friday, this is something I just announced yesterday. We're going to hold a virtual happy hour because we realize these sessions are just so short that this Friday at 4 Eastern, 4 to 6 Eastern time, we're going to hold a virtual happy hour session so you can interact with everybody who's here this week. Most of the presenters are going to be there. The other attendees are going to be there. Of course, I'm going to be there. So that link is in the chat. So go ahead and make sure that you book that on your calendar. I'm also going to send a reminder email out later this week. And those links I just posted in the chat are all the ways that you can connect with us here on the virtual, on the W2 Capitalist community. So I want to turn things over to Eva because I know she's got a lot of material that we're going to go through today on short-term rentals. This is a space that I'm super pumped about and super excited about. And I'm learning from Eva. One of the things that I have not announced, I think I talked about it yesterday, is the presenters for the remainder of the week, including yesterday, are all members of the W2 Capitalist Mastermind. So I get to learn from Eva and her experiences. She gets to learn from me and my experiences. But when it comes to going after short-term rentals, I look up to what Eva's doing. And that's why I was super excited when she said, yes, she would be happy to make a presentation here today. So a lot of familiar faces from this week, but Eva, I want to turn it over to you. And guys, here's one of the things I want to do, and she may reiterate this. If you have questions as we go through, we may have time at the end for a Q&A session. If not, you're going to have an opportunity to follow up with Eva afterwards. But if a question comes up during this 30 minutes, put it in the chat. If you're like me, you may forget it, but you're probably not like me. You probably have a better short-term memory than I do. But if I would forget the question, so just put it in the chat. And we'll handle those as we go or toward the end. Eva, turn it over to you,
Hi.
man.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eva Holland, and I am zooming in from Guatemala City right now. So you're going to hear some sirens and some buses going by, and I apologize for the craziness that is Guatemala City. I have been investing in real estate for about 6 years or so. I started with small multis, well, our personal family home, but then small multis in Jacksonville, and just recently have gotten into the short-term rental space, purchasing 2 cabins in Gatlinburg over the last 9 months or so. So I'm really new to the space, but I am an educator and a researcher by nature. So I've dedicated hundreds of hours to trying to figure out how to make a successful short-term rental. And so far, so good. So what I would like to do is share a little bit about what I've learned, kind of boil my hundreds of hours of experience down into a 30-minute crash course in short-term rentals. Now, of course, there's so much more to this space than I'm going to be able to present today. And so just realize we're just dipping a toe today. So if you have more questions, I'm happy for you to follow up with me directly, or we'll talk a little bit more about other offerings that I have that you might be interested in. Okay, so here we go. All right, I'm a bit of a talker, so I'm going to try and make this quick. So we are doing our 30-minute crash course on short-term rentals and basically how to get started. All right, so the first thing is going to be choosing your market for short-term rentals. Essentially, when doing so, you want to kind of look at 3 things. The first thing is location. So you want to think about what types of markets am I interested in? Am I interested in tailoring my short-term rental to a vacation market? Obviously entertaining families or, couples, for example, that may be going to relax for a few days, or are you kind of like in a city and more interested in tailoring it to businesses? You want to think about, am I looking for a drive-to destination or am I looking for a fly-to destination? We know that drive-to destinations in the period of COVID, definitely took off because they were so convenient and accessible for people and not necessitating air travel, but we know air travel is opening up. And so maybe that's something you're willing to consider. You also want to think about your avatar, like who's your ideal guest? Who are you going to cater to? Are you looking for a business traveler? Are you looking for families? Are you looking for couples? Are you looking for, a younger generation? Those are all things that you want to consider. Regulations. They're like horror stories of people starting their short-term rentals. They buy their, beautiful condo or their, house or whatever, cabin, whatever it happens to be, only to realize that, they actually can't run a short-term rental in that area. This can be due to city or county regulations. It could be due to specific zoning. So even though short-term rentals may be permitted within a city or a county, they're only permitted within certain zones. And so you want to be really careful that you're purchasing within that specific zone. And then something people often overlook is this idea of HOAs. So you want to be sure that your HOA welcomes short-term rentals. I'd also want to try and choose a location where I wasn't the first short-term rental in a particular HOA. So the markets I've chosen are in Gatlinburg. I've chosen Chalet Village, which is a very large HOA that has, hundreds, if not thousands of cabins, all doing short-term rentals, so that I know that my HOA is super short-term rental friendly. Other things, like as you're choosing your market, you're looking at projections. Some of the key sources you could visit would be AirDNA, Mashvisor, or a new one that I found recently is VRBO. And I'm actually finding that VRBO is one of the most kind of on target in terms of the prediction or in terms of the projections for our current rental that we're running. Once you get into some automation with pricing, PriceLabs also offers projections, but you kind of got to have a listing up and running to be able to access those. Although you can purchase market specific data with that. So PriceLabs might be one to add there. Okay, so you bought your cabin. Now you dive into regulations and permits and licensing and inspections. I can't even begin to tell you how complicated this is in my market. I have 2 cabins. One happens to be outside of the Gatlinburg city limits and one happens to be inside. You wouldn't believe the different regulations for both, even though they're in the same HOA. So everything from occupancy permits, okay, I need occupancy permits for one, but I don't need it for the other. Business licenses, I need it with the county for one, the city for another, and that one also needs a county license. Local and state requirements, you might have to pay city taxes, county taxes, and state taxes. So one of my rentals pays county and state, the other pays city, county, and state. Inspections, things like one of my rentals requires, the fire department to come in and double check that I have extinguishers, the other doesn't. So even within, 5 to 10 minutes of each other on the same mountainside, in the same HOA, all of this can be different. And it's a lot to wade into. I'm not going to lie. I can't tell you how much time I've spent on the phone with county and city officials, just clarifying what's supposed to be done. Now, there are Facebook groups to assist you with this, but all the information's wrong. Every time I talk to a city official, they're like, actually, no. So, I've done a lot of that work in the Smoky Mountains. So if anybody needs any information with respect to those regulations, happy to help. The other thing, of course, to consider are any kind of landlord or tenant laws, HOA restrictions or rules for short-term rentals. The last thing you want to do is set up your HOA and have your HOA shut you down, right? I don't even know what you would do in that case. You'd either have to turn it into a long-term rental or sell. Also, just certain areas have restrictions. Once you rent longer than 30 days, you may be entering into some kind of long-term rental contract, and eviction regulations may kind of like be invoked at that point. And it may be really tricky to get rid of a guest if that were to happen. So you've got to really familiarize yourself with all of these rules and regulations before you even begin setting up your listing. Okay, so then you've figured out everything you have to do with the city and the county and the state. What do you do with the rental itself? And this is one of the things that can be overwhelming. There are endless websites talking about like what you should stock your rentals with, how to furnish it, whether to provide gifts for guests. So just to kind of like boil this down into one slide, some of my recommendations that I've found work really well is think about, where are guests spending most of their time? Chances are they're spending 8+ hours a night sleeping in the beds. Make sure that you are providing a comfortable sleeping space, and keep in mind that a bad sleep equals a grumpy guest. Grumpy guests leave bad reviews, which you guys will talk about later. The key to success in short-term rentals is making sure you're getting those 5-star reviews. So really be intentional about the mattresses you're choosing, the curtains you're choosing, the sheets, the pillows, everything. In terms of dishes and small appliances, I like things to match. Some people don't care about that, and maybe you're a guest that doesn't, but I'm trying to offer a luxury experience. So for me, this is important. And one of the things I think about is I look at my max occupancy, and I try and make sure that I have about 1.5 times whatever my max occupancy is. So our first cabin, we have a max occupancy of 10. I want to make sure I have at least 15 plates, 15 glasses, 15 sets of silverware. And then things like small appliances, make sure that you're offering a nice coffee station. When I'm on vacation, I want to sit down in the morning and I want to relax and take it all in. And so I want to have a nice coffee or a nice tea to make that experience enjoyable. Make sure you've got enough small appliances to cater to small meals. And then the other thing to think about are kids, toddlers. Do you have a little high chair? Do you have plastic silverware? Plastic silverware, that doesn't work. Plasticware for kids, plastic plates, plastic glasses. Parents, I can't begin to tell you how many times families have commented just how convenient that is and how thoughtful it is to just be thinking about their little ones. Assuming that's part of your avatar. If you're catering to business travelers, probably don't need toddler plates. So just being intentional about who is going to be staying in your space. The other thing that's worth spending some cash on is Wi-Fi and entertainment. For us, we bought fiber, the best Wi-Fi we could find. We got fiber internet, fast. You can stream. Every single guest can stream on as many devices as they want, because we want it to be easy. We want it to be convenient, and we want it to be accessible for guests. If they can't get on the Wi-Fi, they're frustrated. Remember what we know about frustrated guests, right? And you're gonna get those, you're gonna be responding to all of those comments and those questions that are gonna take up your valuable time. We don't offer cable at our cabins. We just offer streaming. So we basically enable guests to download free apps. So it's connected to our Amazon account at the moment. On one cabin, we're gonna have Roku on the other, and I'm gonna be able to compare the two services. But we just offer guests to sign into their streaming accounts, whatever those accounts may be, and enjoy whatever they typically watch. And then two, in terms of entertainment, the idea, depending on your avatar, right? Maybe you're gonna be in a location where there's tons to do, and guests aren't gonna spend a lot of time in your space. In our space, we're creating that luxury experience. We want guests to enjoy their time there. So it's really important for us to offer them things to do to keep them in the cabin. Yeah, Gatlinburg has lots to offer, but we offer things like indoor and outdoor games, you know, we cater to families. And so, you know, kids get bored and parents want their kids to have something to do. The last thing you want is your kids nagging you on vacation, right? So whether it's video games or
Nagging kids makes
yes,
grumpy parents. Grumpy parents leave bad reviews.
right. Notice the theme here? Exactly. In terms of toiletries and towels, this is of course up to you, but I love going into a nice space with luxurious towels, with little bottles of shampoos and soaps. So think about that. Is it worth spending, you know, 50 extra cents to get that nice spa experience for your guests? The other thing that you'll see on all of the forums as you start to do research for short-term rentals is makeup removal. Guests are going to use your nice white towels to wipe off their makeup. So you want to think about that, right? And how irritated you're going to be, you know, how many face cloths you're going to lose to guests, you know, using them for makeup removal, because your cleaners aren't going to spend a lot of time trying to get that out of towels. So make sure you're thinking about that, because whether you're talking about sheets or towels, you can lose a lot of cash on that. So I offer little makeup wipes. And then two, something really common is to offer a black makeup face cloth that guests can use. And then of course it can be soiled and nobody knows. In terms of furnishings, I think this is really intuitive. Make sure you're choosing something durable and washable. Like, make it easy for your guests. Don't put white couches, right? White couches stain. Then you have to write the guests, like, you stained my couch. The guest gets upset. You're charging fees. When do you do that in the review period? Are they going to leave you a bad review because you mentioned they stained your couch? So just really think about what kinds of furnishings can I provide that are easy to clean and that are going to be able to withstand some wear and tear. So I don't have to go after guests every 5 minutes for every little mark. You want to try and think of decor like neutral comfort, or, you know, depending on your market, maybe you want to go for a particular theme. I know if you're like in Orlando area, a themed short-term rental is like highly desirable. I'm almost halfway through my time. I gotta hurry up. Guest gifts. Be careful with alcohol. Make sure you're reading regulations about that. That was like, oh, I'm gonna leave a bottle of wine for every guest. But you have to be really careful about liability. So actually, I thought I had all these visions. I'm gonna leave the mugs with our logos. I'm gonna leave, you know, camera bags for when they go to the water park and they can take photos. I haven't done any of that. And we have no problem securing bookings. Our reviews are amazing. So I don't know, maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe I will, I don't know. But at this point, it's like just another thing to think about and I don't have the brain space. Okay, I'm gonna try and advance to my next slide here. Y'all are in my way. Sorry, because this is, we really have this time, sorry.
No worries.
Okay, here we go. You might hear my Canadian accent coming out a little bit with that sorry. Okay, key members for self-management. Now, if you're setting up a short-term rental, of course you can get a management company, but you're gonna lose like 20 to 30% of your cash straight off the top. So if you're planning to manage from a distance, hey, I can do it from Guate. So if I can do it from a foreign country, I'm pretty sure you can do it from the United States. Your key members are cleaners. I mean, notice it's starred, highlighted, flashing colors and lights. The most important member of your team are your cleaners. You have to be really intentional about hiring your cleaners. You want to make sure that you've got reviews. You want to make sure that you are hiring a team as dedicated as you are to the success of your rental. You're going to need a handy person, someone who can be on call. Be careful. Also look for reviews. There are ways where you can find these people. Things like Facebook. There are other forums. Thumbtack, a lot of people use. I know TaskRabbit if you're looking for little tasks. An HVAC repair person. If the heat or the AC is not working, you need someone in there post haste. So you need someone that is reliable, that can do calls like outside of normal working hours. An electrician, I would also recommend, maybe a little less important, and also a plumber, right? Plumbing incidents don't end well with guests. And especially if we're talking about toilets, like you need that taken care of immediately. And issues like that, especially with Airbnb, will end up with guests canceling their reservation with a full refund and being placed in another location. So you want to be on that stuff. So have reliable vendors on tap. Okay, then you're ready to set up your listing. So what are you going to choose? Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com. These are the major ones. I'm going to offer a course that goes into like great detail about the differences between these platforms. For me, most of my bookings come on Airbnb. I prefer VRBO just in terms of the regulations. There's lots of research and conversations about why that would be. I also use Booking, but I'm thinking about possibly not using it for much longer just to kind of get our listing off the ground. But you know, there's some downfalls of booking.com, but you're going to want to decide. Most people are going to recommend at least Airbnb, VRBO. So, and that's for many reasons, particularly Airbnb can be a little sketchy, and they can take down your listing at any point. This happened to me because I used a photo from our HOA that wasn't mine. It was like, sorry, copyright issues, but I downloaded a Google image of a pool from our HOA to put on our listing, and that flagged me as having like multiple listings. So Airbnb took our listing down for a week and I couldn't figure out why. I think that I still don't know, but I think that's what it was. In terms of setting up your listing, key things are your first 5 photos. This is our listing, our first cabin in Gatlinburg. You want to make sure that you're really careful with your grammar. I mean, most people are going to be mindful of the way you word things. And personally, if I find a listing with grammar mistakes, I'm probably not going to stay there. You want to try and make your listing unique so that it stands out. You want to provide like a description, and in your description, you really want to kind of let guests know what type of experience they're going to have in staying at your cabin. And then the part that we don't love, but that is absolutely critical, are your policies and expectations. If you don't establish these upfront in your listing, then you have no recourse if something goes wrong. Okay, if there's a party and you don't tell people that you're going to evict guests if they have a party and not issue a refund, it's entirely possible that you won't get the backing, particularly from Airbnb. You know, if you don't list that you have security cameras, Airbnb can take down your listing. So things like that, you have to be really, really intentional about, and make sure you incorporate those even in the listing. But you want to also make sure that you're not sounding like too restrictive for guests. So you're kind of trying to paint that in a positive light, but at the same time, kind of like set your bottom line and your expectations.
Stern but fair, and you don't want to be the fun police, right? You want to make sure they're having a good time.
That's exactly right. Oh gosh, sorry. Okay, automation. The last thing you want to do is like hover over your listing all the time, whether it's setting prices, managing your calendar, communicating with guests, all that kind of stuff. So there's like what I call a tech stack, or what many people call a tech stack, is like all the software programs that you're going to be using to help you automate your experience, right? I didn't know Gatlinburg's market. How the heck do I know how to price my listing? And some people will just be like, okay, $250 every night of the year. Well, you're leaving a lot of money on the table if that's your choice. So one of the first things you want to do is make sure that you are using some kind of pricing software. And the 3 main ones that exist are Price Labs, Wheelhouse, and Beyond Pricing. I've used Price Labs. For me, it works really well. Super happy with it so far. It's highly recommended. But that's a great place to start. But you can't actually, start using Price Labs until you actually have your listing set up in Airbnb or VRBO. The next thing you want to do, especially if you're using multiple listing platforms, you want to make sure you have some kind of property management software. These are like, there's a long exhaustive list of property management softwares. These are 6 that are common or like that are recommended. I use Guesty for hosts personally, and it does everything that I want it to accomplish. So there's a long list of things you should be looking for property management software. I just don't have time to get into because I only have 6 minutes left. Gotta go. Guest communication here, like this is so important. Make sure that you're proactive, anticipate what questions your guests are going to have, and have all automated messages going out to guests so they don't have to like ask you for the arrival information, right? They don't have to ask you like, how do I use the smart lock, right? And that you're checking in on them after their first night. Did everything go okay? By doing that, you're going to be ahead of any negative experience or anything that's like not functioning or working for your guests. So you want to do that, you know, in advance, anticipate that. I really like engage with my guests. I have whole relationships. I swear some of them are my best friends. Like we have dialogues that go back and forth. But then I have guests, like our last guest wrote me 1 message. I'm like, are you even there? Like what's happening? Easiest guest ever. So if your guest is showing the inclination to engage them. Like, what are you doing? What's going on? Like, oh, this is my experience, or can I help you with that? Or, you know, just like thinking forward to like, what might they need from you? And then the biggest one, to empathize and compensate. If something goes wrong, be quick to throw some kind of compensation their way, right? A guest couldn't get in, our smart lock wasn't working, the keypad wasn't working. I was in a parent-teacher conference because I'm a teacher, and I wasn't answering the messages from the guests. They left the cabin because they couldn't get into the cabin, right? They said, okay, we're gonna go grocery shopping. So I immediately, as soon as I could, I wrote them. And by the time they got back from getting their groceries, there was a box of donuts waiting for them. Like, what did it cost me? $26 to completely make, you know, the guests happy. So always think about like, it's their vacation. They're spending good cash money to be there. Make sure that you are, you know, ahead of the game in offering compensation if a guest has a bad experience in any way, shape, or form. It costs you like very little to secure a good review and possibly a return guest. And then I think this is almost my last slide. So one of the things to think about in terms of visibility is like, you want your listing coming up at the top of the page. Depending on your market, like I'm struggling, I think mine is on page 4 sometimes, right? But some of the things that you need to think about in order to make sure your listing is visible is, are you a super host or preferred host? You can learn all about how to do that. It's really important that you secure that designation for yourself. Reviews, like 5-star reviews, and you want to get one from every single guest that stays with you, if at all possible. I think I've probably had, I don't know, 30 plus guests, and I probably have maybe 35 guests, and I probably have 30 reviews across the platforms. You want to put on instant book, that increases your visibility. You want to have competitive rates. You want to make sure that you are responding like within an hour to any inquiries. So set up some automation for that. Never cancel a reservation. Have good photos and constantly be tinkering with your listing. And when and wherever possible, share your link. You want clicks, get clicks. There's also something called Rank Breeze I have yet to try out, but I'm excited to look at that because it'll give you feedback on how small tweaks will change your listing. Okay, 30 minutes, 28 minutes.
Oh, wow. That was
okay. Hundreds of hours in 30 minutes. If you want more about any information and a lot more that I have to offer, I am starting a course on June 1st. I welcome you to join us. I'm going to limit you to 10 participants. I'm offering it for $500, well, $499, but if you're coming as a W-2 capitalist, if you want to use W-2 capitalist as a coupon code, you'll save $100 in your enrollment. Nice. And I'm only taking the first 10 participants. So if you're interested in getting more information, send me an email. Happy to like answer any questions you have. And if you're interested in learning about the course, here's the website where you could go. I'm calling myself Tipster, short-term rental advisory. So visit this website. I also offer consultations if you've already got your short-term rental up and running, but you want to know more about a tech stack or what to stock it with or how to get those reviews or guest communications. Happy to do it. Okay, Jay, what have I got?
That's awesome. You've got 1 minute to answer this question from Nick.
Okay.
Nick asked, I don't get bookings from VRBO. I can't figure out why. I guess it's the visibility on their platform. Any hacks for VRBO that you can suggest?
You know, I don't get that many from VRBO either. And it's interesting because in a Facebook group that I'm in, that's one of the comments. People will get mostly Airbnb or mostly VRBO, and people will all of a sudden switch and they can't explain it either. So my suggestion would be to go back to these SEO optimization things, make sure you're a preferred host. And then I would do all of these things, right? Be tinkering with your listing and have people clicking on it and share it as much as you can to increase that visibility. Make sure you've got good photos. This is where I would start. And then you could also join Rank Breeze. But VRBO is one of the most coveted booking sites because they are the most host friendly. So we all want the VRBO bookings, and they tend to be, rumor has it, kind of a higher end type guest that books in advance.
Yes, I was going to say that it's just to plug the Mastermind real quick. We were on the Mastermind call last night, and somebody asked the question, where do you get most of your bookings from, Airbnb or VRBO? And I said, well, most of them come from Airbnb, but what I can tell you is from VRBO, those guests book way in advance. Like our July and August have been booked from last year, and it's been bookings from VRBO. And it seems like there's more last minute trips all come from Airbnb. There's not a whole lot of, I mean, it's maybe like 2 or 3 months in advance. That's probably the longest lead time we've gotten from an Airbnb guest. And so, and I haven't done any research. This is just my, I don't know, opinion, I guess, is that Airbnb is the new hip thing. It applies to a younger crowd that's going to use it. And I was going to say most of us, I like to include myself in that group. We do things last minute, you know, and the older generation that's used VRBO because it's been around for a while, they tend to like to plan a lot better than we do, right? So that's my 2 cents, Nick, even though you didn't really ask for it, but that's my thoughts.
I personally go to Airbnb though, when I'm booking something.
I do too.
I always go to Airbnb. So, I mean, are we really low end guests, Jay?
I probably am, yeah. I don't know about you, but yeah, I probably am. I fall into that category. All right, Eva.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to put my listing in the chat. If you want to check it out, you're welcome to do that. And our second listing is going to be up hopefully in like 4 days. I'm off to Tennessee to get that cabin up and running and get that listing going. So
awesome. Guys, connect with Eva. I think the most impressive thing about her story is, and she didn't share this, I guess because she's just way too humble from what I've gotten to know about her, is that she's from Canada. She lives abroad in Guatemala, and she bought a cabin in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee without ever being there. That she's never visited the place, or excuse me, it was Gatlinburg. She's never visited Gatlinburg until the day they closed on the property. And that was, and if you connect with her, have her tell you that story, because that sounds like it was a fun one. It was certainly fun. So now it's fun. Yeah, now it's fun to look back on. Super stressful during that time, but Eva, thank you very much. That 30 minutes goes by real fast. There's somebody asking in the chat, Eva, if you can handle this, because I want to switch over to Cody. What is Rent Breeze? So if you can handle that in the chat, that would be amazing. And thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this for us today.
It begins with a thought, an idea that keeps growing in your mind. You spend days, months, or even years just simply thinking about it. There are many ways to get started, take action, and make progress, but both you and I know the best way is to have a guide as you surround yourself with like-minded people. Peers who are on your level that are actively taking the next step. You will feel empowered and your confidence will breed confidence. Having so many options to choose from when purchasing a real estate investing educational program, you will soon find out that just a few will understand your thoughts, your fears, and your expectations. For the next 6 weeks, I will be your coach. Grasp your vision, create realistic goals, and diligently apply what I've learned from investing since 2014 and deliver a framework for you to build your experience and portfolio. Seating is limited. Register today.